The 2019 season was one for the books, particularly when we look at the remarkable run of Kawhi Leonard. It's hard to imagine a season quite like the one he had, and honestly, I'd argue there hasn't been one since. In just 1 year with the Toronto Raptors, Kawhi accomplished more than most players do in their entire careers. He didn't just have a great playoff run, he delivered one of the greatest playoff performances in NBA history. He etched moments into the annals of NBA lore, leading a team to a championship when many thought it was their last shot at one. And he did all of this while cementing his legacy as one of the greatest to ever play the game. What makes it even more incredible is that he accomplished all of this in a single year. 2019 was truly a singularity. It was a season like no other, a perfect storm of brilliance and determination. Words really can't even describe it. You had to witness it to truly believe it. It felt like I was living in an alternate timeline the first time I saw Kawhi in a Raptors jersey. It was mind-boggling, as crazy as the series of events that brought him to Toronto in the first place. It all began in Game 1 of the 2017 Western Conference Finals. Kawhi and the San Antonio Spurs were absolutely demolishing the newly formed Golden State Super Team. The Spurs were up by 21 points in the third quarter, and for the first time in the playoffs, the Warriors seemed mortal. But just as the idea started to take hold that Golden State could be defeated, disaster struck. Kawhi Leonard landed awkwardly on Zaza Pachulia's foot after a jumper, injuring his left ankle. It was a sprain that would force him to miss the rest of the series, and the Warriors, showing their resilience, would go on to sweep the Spurs. That injury was a crushing blow, not just to San Antonio's playoff hopes, but to the entire franchise's future. Unfortunately, it wasn't the end of the trouble for Kawhi. As Kawhi worked hard on rehabbing his ankle during the offseason, an unexpected quad injury appeared. This one would keep him sidelined for much of the following season. Tension grew between Leonard and the Spurs, with rumors of a rift between him and the organization. He made the decision to rehab with his own team instead of the Spurs' medical staff, and when reports surfaced about the growing tensions, the situation escalated. Tony Parker even took shots at Kawhi in the media, and that was the breaking point. By the time the offseason rolled around, Kawhi had made it clear he wanted a trade, and while the Lakers were his preferred destination, San Antonio didn't budge. Instead, the Spurs sent him to Toronto, a team he had no interest in playing for. With only 1 year left on his contract and little leverage, Kawhi was essentially stuck. And just like that, a sight that seemed impossible, a star of Kawhi's caliber in a Raptors jersey, became a reality. From the moment he suited up for Toronto, it was clear that Kawhi Leonard wasn't just going to be another cog in the machine. His impact was immediate, starting with a 24-point, 14-rebound double-double on opening night. Just 2 nights later, he dropped 31 points and 10 rebounds against Boston, showing his potential was through the roof. However, there was a catch. Kawhi began to sit out games in an effort to manage his quad injury, a concept that would come to be known as load management. It became clear that the Raptors were willing to do whatever it took to make sure Kawhi was fresh and healthy come playoff time, and that plan would pay off. In the early part of the season, it was clear that Toronto was in a good place with Kawhi, but it wasn't just about getting through the regular season. The Raptors were already off to a 12-1 start, and things were clicking. One of the defining moments of the season came on November 29th when the Raptors faced the defending champion Golden State Warriors. This was Kawhi's first game against Golden State since that fateful 2017 injury, and he came out with a vengeance, dropping 37 points in an overtime win. That game and that performance would set the tone for much of the rest of the season. As the year continued, Kawhi kept performing at a ridiculously high level. He exploded for 45 points in a game against Utah, a career high for him at the time. But just 2 nights later, he was in San Antonio for his first game against his old team since demanding a trade. The reception he received was far from warm. The Spurs fans booed him relentlessly, calling him a traitor. It was a painful chapter, but Kawhi didn't let it rattle him. In fact, it might have ignited something inside him. Over the next 7 games, Kawhi put on an absolute clinic. He averaged 31 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists per game, and did it with incredible efficiency. He was a man on a mission, playing with a level of focus and composure that was almost robotic. There were nights when he would hit huge shots, like a clutch fadeaway with 7 seconds left to tie a game, and barely even flinch. He would sink a jaw-dropping move on his opponent, leaving them in the dust, and his stone-cold stare into the abyss after each bucket became a signature look. Kawhi didn't care about the celebration, he just cared about getting the job done. And that's exactly what he did. Even when hitting a game winner, the most you'd get out of him was a small fist pump. It was all about the work for Kawhi, no distractions. But there were moments like the insane bounce on a baseline shot, when even the cold-blooded killer had to show a little emotion. After a game-winning shot against the Sixers, Kawhi couldn't help but acknowledge the incredible bounce that secured the Raptors' 46th win of the season. By the time the playoffs rolled around, Toronto was ready. They had locked up the second seed in the East, and it was clear that Kawhi was about to turn up another level. The regular season was just the warm-up. In the first round, the Raptors faced the Orlando Magic. After a surprising loss in Game 1, Toronto came alive and rattled off 4 straight wins to move on. Next up was the heavily favored Philadelphia 76ers. The Raptors and the Sixers battled back and forth, but Kawhi took over the series, especially in Game 1 with a 45-point, 11-rebound performance. Even with that huge game, the Sixers were relentless and took a 2-1 series lead. It wasn't a problem for Kawhi, though. In Game 4, he stepped up once again, putting up 39 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 assists, hitting a huge 3 to give Toronto a lead. The Raptors ended up splitting the next 2 games at home, forcing a Game 7. When it all came down to one final game, Kawhi Leonard was clutch, as he always had been. He put up 41 points, and in a moment that seemed straight out of a movie, Kawhi hit a buzzer beater to win the series. It was the only Game 7 buzzer beater in NBA history, and it sealed the Raptors' spot in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Bucks were next, and though they were the number 1 seed in the East and had the reigning MVP, Kawhi wasn't intimidated. After Toronto found themselves down 0-2 in the series, Kawhi took it upon himself to guard Giannis Antetokounmpo. He spoke up in the locker room, saying the adjustment was that he would guard Giannis, and his confidence was contagious. In Game 3, Kawhi delivered on his promise, holding Giannis to just 12 points on 5 of 16 shooting while dropping 36 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists to get the Raptors back in the series. Game 4 saw the Raptors tie things up, and Game 5 was where Kawhi truly showed his superstar status, scoring 35 points with 7 rebounds and 9 assists. In Game 6, he finished the Bucks off with 27 points and a dagger that eliminated Giannis and the Bucks from contention. The Raptors were headed to their first-ever NBA Finals. And then, after everything, the ultimate redemption awaited Kawhi. The Golden State Warriors were once again standing in the way, and Kawhi was finally ready to get his revenge for the injury that had derailed his Spurs tenure. In the finals, it wasn't always easy. The Warriors were a formidable opponent, but Kawhi kept pushing through. Game 1 saw the Raptors win, with Kawhi contributing 23 points. He followed that up with a stellar 34-point, 14-rebound performance in Game 2, but the Warriors came back to tie the series at 1-1. Then, Kawhi kept his word and delivered 2 massive road wins in Games 3 and 4, putting the Raptors 1 win away from the title. Game 5 was a war, and despite Toronto losing the lead late, Kawhi's 10-point explosion in 2 minutes gave the Raptors a lead, only to see the Warriors steal it back. But Game 6 was the one that mattered. With the championship on the line, the Raptors found themselves up by just a few points. When the Warriors had a chance to tie the game, Curry missed a 3, and the rest was history. Kawhi hit free throws to seal the victory, completing one of the most improbable, unforgettable playoff runs we've ever seen. The Raptors had won their first NBA title, and Kawhi was crowned the Finals MVP. It was a season that defied all expectations, a story of perseverance, revenge, and ultimate triumph. If you want to experience more moments like these, be sure to subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss what's next.